how important, this is a question a lot of people ask me, how important is the microphone? How important is the room? How important is what you play when you train this thing up?
In our case, it's not very important at all. That was one of our design goals. You know, we wanted to make it so it wasn't dependent on playing any particular thing. It's really, so, you know, you could strum an open E chord for the whole training session, as you know, because you and I have talked about this, and you just did this. It works fine. It gives you everything you need to know. You know, basically, you just need to excite your instrument so that it's vibrating and getting, you know, a rich response of sound out of it. Now, you know, if you just play one note, you'd think, well, that's going to be very, very limited. But however, there's a lot of harmonics on one note, and you are exciting your instrument. It's not full, but if you play a bunch of notes, you know, at the same time or separately, you will basically excite the instrument and give, you know, our algorithm enough information to learn the you know, what's the difference between the two.
Okay, awesome. So we have some slides here. Would you like to go to those to show on the screen what we're talking about?
Yeah, so before we do, let me just set that up a little bit. So the impulse response represents the filter that is the difference between the pickup and the mic. And that's really your instrument and how it resonates. You know, the better instruments have more complex, interesting resonances. And when I say resonances, I mean frequencies that stand out and frequencies that don't stand out, that dip down. It's a bunch of different things going on simultaneously. It's a complex mechanical apparatus that when you strike the string and send energy into it, it vibrates in a very complex way, which to our ears is good. If it's made by a guitar maker or a violin maker, whatever, who knows what they're doing, then you get a sound that's pleasing. And since we're learning that, that's the reason you can make a pickup signal, which doesn't have much information, sound like a microphone. So to set up these slides, I actually have a couple of what we call frequency response plots. And what that means is you'll look at these and you're going to see peaks and dips. And the peaks and dips represent different frequencies that are either louder or softer. Okay, and this is what we're looking at, is the response of the wave map or the impulse response. IRs from 3 guitars. This is a Gibson Advanced Jumbo, a Martin OMC, and a Voyager D18 style guitar in green. The blue one, the Martin, is a little harder to see. But what you see here is the main resonances of these guitars. And all guitars are similar, or at least flat top acoustic guitars are similar in this respect. There's usually a main resonance down around 100 or 110, 120 maybe. And you can see that at the first line, it says 10 to the second on the bottom. That means 100 hertz. And you can see this is the chamber resonance. This is where the guitar forms a Helmholtz resonator, just like when you blow into a bottle of Coca-Cola and you get the, you know, that sound. Well, that's what happens with your guitar. And it happens at about that frequency, which is your low G, G sharp A. It's in that range. And if you listen carefully to your instrument just by itself acoustically in the room and play those low notes, you will notice that 1 or 2 of those are louder than everything else down there. Well, that's this resonance. And the next one up is more like 180 to 200 hertz. And it's what they call the first mode of the top plate, which is the first way that the top of the guitar wants to vibrate. So it's its most easily vibrating frequency. That's what a resonance is. It's where it's the most amenable to vibrating. And that's what that second thing represents. That's the next place you're going to get feedback if you tame the first one. Sometimes that's the first one to go off. It depends on how loud it is. So if you stick a mic in front of a guitar, okay, you don't have a pickup, you don't have a ToneDexter, you just put a mic in front of your great sounding acoustic guitar, and you try to boost the gain of that mic up and play live, it doesn't work very well. Okay. And why is that? Well, because the mic is hearing these resonances and they're sticking up a lot, 8, 10, 12 dB above sort of the baseline for everything else. And as soon as you get the guitar kind of loud, we're just going to start feeding back at one or both of these frequencies, and you will be in trouble. Now, what people do is they put sound hole plugs in, or they try other things. They try a notch filter, which is, can help. But the main problem with miking a guitar is this, playing live. If you mic the guitar and create an impulse response with ToneDexter or with whoever else's process is out there, if you don't deal with these resonances, you're going to have the same problem that you had if you just have a microphone. You will get the lusher sound, but you will have feedback problems. So what we do in ToneDexter is what we used to do before version 2 is we would knock these guys back. When we create the wave map, we learn all this information and we know exactly where these are. And we just cut them back automatically, and we would bake those into the wave maps, unless you started on slot 22, in which case it would not do that. Now what we do, starting with version 2.0, is we don't do that. We don't bake it in, but we learn it and we allow you the ability to dial it in after the fact, as much or none of the rejection at these frequencies that you need.
Okay.
You understand this, right? You want to see if you can paraphrase what I just said?
Good idea. Yeah. So the way I see it, we're looking at an EQ curve of these different guitars. And we've all had this problem. I've even had it recently, knowing what I know, just sitting in this room in front of my speakers with pickups, even undersaddle pickups, especially things like K and K. But I guess magnetic, you don't get this problem, which is a good thing for magnetic pickups. But those peaks we see, yes, that's what you get when you go to open mic and someone plugs in a guitar and you hear that. That's basically what's going on. That peak is too high. So what I'm looking at here is an EQ curve. This is what the ToneDexter is grabbing. This would be the same as the microphone. The ToneDexter is taking this and it's basically shaping the pickup EQ curve, which would not look as nice, as beautiful as this one, and making them closer, and then you're hearing the same thing. So is this basically all EQ? Is this all about EQ, this IR thing?
Yes. Well, as we said a few minutes ago, an IR is an EQ.
Okay.
It's just a sophisticated one.
Right, yeah.
It's sophisticated in that you can kind of have any shape you want. You're not limited by certain just bell-shaped curves, different width, and that kind of thing. With IRs, you can make it whatever you want it to be. So you can make it fit like a glove. This was actually the measured response through the wave map I created for one of my guitars. It's the Voyager, the D18 style mahogany. And what you see is the successive reduction of those peaks as I dial up the notch control, which is now the variable feedback control.
Yeah, so that's the feedback being reduced, basically. Those two big peaks are being turned down when you turn up the feedback control.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that's basically a way to think about what the variable feedback control does now with ToneDexter version 2.0 and above, is it learns the exact shape of the problem frequencies, and it allows you to counteract them and dial them down.
Okay, let me ask you
as much or little as you need.
Let me ask you a silly question. I might regret asking this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So you're bringing down those two peaks by 10 dB, which looks like it's flattening them out. Everything's flat. So what would happen then if I then turn up my pedal by 10 dB? Will I still get the problems? Will I still get those feedback problems or not?
It depends. You might or you might not. One of the reasons that you get the problem is because the peaks are so much louder than everything else, and you're basically adjusting everything else so that it's loud enough. Okay, so the peaks are going to be too loud and causing the feedback. If you flatten out the bottom, then you probably won't need to bring up the overall level, or you will only need to bring it up just a little bit. So it's a gain. It may not be a total 100% gain, but it's real close to effectively you get, if it's dropping by 10 dB, you're getting 10 dB of help. And 10 dB is a lot. That's a factor of 3 to 1, which is, that may sound like a small number, but the technical people out there will realize that 10 dB is huge, actually.
Yeah, yeah. It's
and I just want to say one thing.
Yeah.
If you look at that graph carefully, it's not just one peak that's going down. There's right on the far right side of the picture, you can barely see it, but there's basically a third resonance over there that's just being knocked down just a little bit. And it's not limited to 2 or 3 or 4. It's whatever is peaky below about 440 hertz. The A on your high E string. It's whatever is peaky basically in the whole fundamental range of your instrument all the way down. That's what gets addressed by that control.
So this is great because, yes, of course, feedback is a big issue. Even without an IR, feedback can be an issue. Even with an undersaddle pickup, like the Fishman I use there, even that can feedback, can't it? So this is something that's very important. I actually have this with me here. This is the current generation of the Aura, and they dealt with it by having an auto anti-feedback, which again I thought was really cool. It would actually kind of identify what's feeding back at the time and remove it. Some people just do like a big low cut. But the way you're doing it, I think, is very clever. And I love the way you can bring it in or not, because actually I'm playing a lot now with in-ears. I don't really need that feedback reduction, do I? I can just use the whole map as it is, because I'm not going to feedback wearing in-ear monitors. So I love that I can start without it and bring it in if I need it.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, if you don't need it, then you don't use it. And then you'll get pretty much the mic sound. It's very, very close. And if that's what sounds good, there's no need to change it on account of feedback issues that you're not having.
Yeah.